internships were. Our next guest served as an intern on the Fiesta Bowl after graduating from Arizona State. Was recently appointed to the Fiesta Bowl board. Spent 7 years in Tucson, and he's now the director. He's been the director of athletics at Alabama. Greg Bryne joins us. Sports Greg, Rocky Minuch, good to hear from you. We haven't talked to you since you were on the base, so we are very, very grateful for you to make some time for us on this Friday.
You betcha. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Good. Did our city do its justice for the Final Four?
Did a great job. Yeah, we. The only thing you didn't do is let Alabama win the first game against Connecticut. I'm not sure who was going to beat Connecticut. They're awfully good, and our kids had a wonderful time there. Our fans actually, we got quite a few get out there on a pretty short notice, obviously. And then when we lost, I'm on the men's basketball committee, so I stayed to do some committee work, and then we had some news out of election in Kentucky that I kind of had to stay focused on. I didn't have to go out and hire a new coach.
You just did that a couple months ago. Wait a second. Alabama, Final Four basketball? I mean, just talk about the job that Nate Oates has done with that program, because folks just go, shouldn't they? Okay, this isn't January. This is April for all things considered.
Yeah, it's pretty special. Interestingly, here at Alabama, we've won 5 national championships in 5 different sports. Football obviously gets the lion's share of the attention, and we've won the most championships there. But gymnastics has won 5 national championships. Our softball program, our men's and women's golf programs, they've all won championships too. So we whatever we do, we want to be good. And obviously, we've had a lot of history in men's basketball that has been really good. The women's team has made the Final Four before, and so this was the first time we made it on the men's side. And we hired Coach Oates 5 years ago, and he goes about it a different way.
Yeah.
I remember watching him. I was here at Alabama when he and his Buffalo beat Arizona with DeAndre Ayton, and I was like, they don't shoot. 15-footer. It's either at the rim or it's out beyond the point line. I know Steve Kerr, and he's talked about offensive philosophy with me before, and I know that he and Nate have talked, continue to talk over time. They're very innovative from an offensive standpoint, and he's brought that here to Alabama. Kids want to be a part of it. It's exciting. Our fans have really gotten behind it, and so. Obviously had a really good year this year. We've won, out of the last, I think, 7 or 8 SEC regular season or tournament championships, we won 4 of them. And so it's really fun to see, and our fans have really gotten behind it. There's a lot of energy with it. It's really good.
Alabama Director of Athletics, Greg Bryne here on recommendation with Jimmy B, Fox Sports 910. You mentioned the NCAA committee that you were on. We had been on, who's a classmate of mine from college. Stanford AD, and he had that position as chairman a couple of years ago. We didn't really mention how much basketball you have to watch outside of your conference over the course of the season. Right? I mean, you're watching. I think you primarily was with the Big Ten, I believe.
Big Ten, yeah. I had some others, but Big Ten was the one that took the lion's share of attention. And yeah, you watch them when you can. They've got a program that you can watch a game in about 20 to 30 minutes, and but nothing really. Even this year, so when it comes like the SEC, I can only talk about facts. I can't talk about an opinion.
Sure.
And I can't even, anytime Alabama gets talked about, I have to leave the room, and they do not mess around with that. They're very serious about it. And so anyways, I try to go on at least 1 or 2 road trips a year with our men's and women's teams. And so I went up to Kentucky when we played at Rupp this year. It's basketball, and I sat next to our radio guys. And it actually, I've talked to our folks, our leadership of the NCAA committee, and when we tipped off against them, I was like, man, they look different than us. That's a really good team. Calipari had a lot of really talented kids, and they beat us by 20. And we were a Final Four team. They beat us by 20 at their place. My point in all that is, nothing is better than watching them live in person.
Sure,
because you get to see physically how they look, and you can't always appreciate that when you're watching it on TV or watching it on film. But yeah, no, I got to watch a lot of different games. I love the game. And so it's been great to be a part of it, but obviously you got to make sure you balance that with your day job too.
Greg, I saw a report in the Sports Business Journal, I believe it was today or last night, that there's some rumblings that we could see a combined men's and women's Final Four in the future of college basketball. You think there's any truth to something like that happening?
There's been, yeah, we've had some discussions about that. There have been some folks that have advocated for it. I don't see it getting a lot of traction right now, mostly because to pull off two events of that magnitude in the same community, you're talking very few towns that could pull that off successfully. From a hotel standpoint, from logistics with buses and travel into there for the fans, it's already hard enough to, when you looked last week trying to get from Birmingham, Alabama to Phoenix, Arizona, you couldn't find the flight, right? They were all taken. And so I think that would put even more pressure on it. So listen, both are really good events. It was really fun to see just the growth of the women's Final Four, especially, and the women's tournament. I've heard some people compare it. I think all of us are old enough to remember Magic Johnson and Larry Bird with Michigan State, Indiana State, and I think in 1976 or 79. I always forget.
79.
I remember 79. I remember when that game was played, and that was a changing moment for the men's tournament. And I think with Caitlin Clark and the really good South Carolina and LSU teams and such, the question is that the moment now that is a springboard for a lot of other things for women's basketball, because it's a great sport and it's really great for young women, especially girls, to get a chance to have see the young women in college basketball play at the levels that they are.
Greg, I'm just when you look at the teams that are out there, and so much parity I feel this year than the last several years in the NCAA. Is there a set standard you guys have to follow as far as the seedings are concerned? Does every guy or gal have their own criteria, and then somewhere in the middle lies the truth when you set the seedings up? How did that all kind of come about with some of these seedings?
Yeah, so you have 12 people in the room, okay, and we all have things that we look at the analytics. The same analytics are available for everybody. Everybody has the opportunity to watch games and look at teams and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then people hear about the net, and net is part of it. We look at the net, but it's not like, oh my gosh, this team's net is 3 spots above this one, they need to be seated higher. There's a lot of times where somebody's net, maybe in the single digits, and they're seated not as high as somebody that's in the double digits, right? So it's not a set criteria. Now, once you select, you're looking for, you have the AQ leagues that everybody gets one team in, and then you have the at-large spots. And once you're trying to select the very best teams for those at-large spots, no matter what conference they're in. That's not supposed to weigh in, well, this league's only got 2 and this one, should have 5, so we better find some more people to put in. That's not how that works. But then you look at the data and analytics. And for instance, for me, I'm a big believer in how your non-conference strength of schedule is. I think it's good for college basketball to see good games played in November and December. And I also think that it helps prepare you for the tournament. But somebody else may say, I'm much more into offensive or defensive efficiencies than I am into that. And they don't tell you have to have this as your priority. Otherwise, you would just have a computer,
sure,
seating
3 minutes,
and all that. Now, when it comes to where people get sent, all of that there's a bunch of criteria that determines that. So if you're in the same conference, you can't, and you played twice, you can't play. Yeah, I think, and I may be getting a few of these wrong because it was, a month ago that we were doing this, but you can't play another conference member until the Sweet 16. I think that's one of the criteria. There's something where if you're a 4 seed and you can play a 5 seed in the second game, you can't have a 5 seed have an advantage over a 4 seed, and that's for the other seeds too. So you got to be careful of that. So, for instance,
2 minutes,
BYU, if they were a 5 seed, it was going to be difficult to put them in Salt Lake this year because they would have had a definite advantage in the second game over a 4 seed, right? And so that sometimes you see teams getting shipped to different places that you think in theory, well, why the heck they do that? Well, there is a method to all of it. And that's why this year, for instance, University of Alabama, Auburn, and UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, all got sent to Spokane, and we were all, that would just happen to be how the locations and the seating worked out, and you had to stay true to those principles, and that's what we did.
Greg Byrne joining us, Alabama AD here on Rock and Minutia, Jimmy B. Greg, when you look at the bowl system, being on the board here in Arizona, been a Yellow Jacket for over 25 years. I bleed the yellow. I love what we do. You feel confident that the bowls, especially ours, will be protected as these challenges continue in college football?
I was certainly honored to get asked to be on the board. I was not expecting that. I know Gene Smith, the AD at Ohio State's been on for the last several years, and he's retiring, but he's going to be the chairman next year of the board for the bowl. And I interned there, 100 years ago, and so getting asked to do that was a real honor. But I think part of why they want somebody like me is we're in a very volatile time right now in our industry. And a few weeks ago, Coach Saban and I went back to D.C. and we were part of a roundtable that Senator Ted Cruz put on, and it was a bipartisan one. There was about 10 senators that were a part of it on both sides of the aisle, which was great to have both sides represented. And in that discussion, I got criticized for it, and that's okay. It's part of it. But part of my remarks were talking about, I'm concerned about the Olympic model. I'm concerned about the non-revenue sports and the opportunities that come along. Because here at Alabama, we have 21 sports. One of them makes a healthy profit in football. One of them turns a profit, but not a huge one in men's basketball. And then we have 19 sports that lose a lot of money. The two smallest losers are men's and women's tennis programs. Each lose just under $1 million a year. We lead the country in softball attendance, and we lose several $1 million a year with softball. It's very expensive to do what we do. And if all of a sudden, there is a significant line item added to our budget, and this isn't Alabama, this is everywhere. So I'm just talking broad picture here. That money's going to come from somewhere. So Senator Cruz asked me on the record with a lot of media there and everything, what sports would those be? And I said, it could be any of them. I mean, I'm concerned about swimming. I'm concerned about track and field. I'm concerned about our tennis programs. And these young men and young women in these programs work really hard, tireless for for their sport. And we love to see them compete. We want to see them compete. And at Alabama, we're committed to do that about as much as anybody. We're number 9 in the country overall department after the winter sports and the fall and winter sports. So we want to compete, and we're proud of that. But the money is going to come from somewhere. And people will say, well, you just should pay coaches less. Well, listen, do you think Nick Saban was a good investment for our program? He was an incredible investment for our program. And he probably could have left and gone to the NFL and made more money at some point, but he believed in college football. He believed in the University of Alabama. And it would have been foolish of us to not invest in Nick Saban. And so you have those, and that, let's say when he retired, we went and hired an assistant coach somewhere and paid him at the bottom of the market. What are you putting at risk when you do? Just saying, we'll pay somebody less. And so and college sports is such a great industry. I mean, there's so many good things that happen within the walls of our department. And obviously, controversy sells and all that. And when we have 1,000 people in our department between student athletes and employees, you're going to have some bad things happen from time to time. But if you're in the walls of this department, or Arizona State or University of Arizona or NAU, there's a lot of good that's taking place on a daily basis, and we want to make sure we can protect that for the long haul.
Greg, congratulations on all your.
So to answer your question about the Bulls, if anybody tells you they know what's going to happen in the next few years, they got a bridge to sell you too.
What's been interesting too, but hey, congratulations on the board appointment. We can't wait to see you here. Hopefully you'll be able to come when you have time. But thanks for the time today. We really appreciate it, Greg. Thank you.
You betcha. Thanks, guys. Roll Tide.
That's Greg Byrne, Director of Athletics for the University of Alabama. Good. We'll come back. We'll react. It's Rock and Minutia with Jimmy B, Fox Sports 9.
Clear for the Monday.